In this video, we're going to go over a couple of different ways that you can seal your house up for the winter. And we're going to do it right now. It's winter time, and one of the best things you can do for your house and for yourself is to seal it up. Stop cold drafts from coming in and stop the warm air from escaping. That way you'll save some money and you'll be a lot warmer. If you follow my channel, you'll know that I've basically remodeled my entire house. I've torn the walls out and the ceiling out and re-insulated up to or past code. Energy saving and just being warm in general is very important. If you have that option of remodeling, tearing the walls apart and insulating them, tearing the ceiling apart, insulating it, that's great. But not everybody has that option, or not everybody wants to do that. There's only so much money that you can put into the house before it starts paying you back. But as you'll see in this video, there are still areas that I can improve, and that's kind of what we're going to go over. Any little thing you can do to stop drafts from coming in and stop the warm air from escaping. For the sake of this video, I'm obviously going to use my house as an example. Houses are different all over the world, but I am in New England, and this is a wood constructed house built in 1946. It has a basement, it has drywall with fiberglass insulation behind it. So as I'm going over things in this video, keep in mind that not all of this is going to be relevant to you, but hopefully the information helps you. A nice, easy place to start with this is to seal up the weak points in your house. And by weak points, I mean a door, a window, outlets, lighting fixtures, attic access points. But the most obvious thing is if you have a hole in your wall. Maybe you open up your door, smash the doorknob into the wall, and now you have a hole. Just filling that hole with joint compound, patching it up, you'd be surprised what that'll do. A draft can come right through there, especially if your house isn't perfectly insulated. So if you have a hole there, there's no insulation, might as well tuck some in there while you're at it, but at least seal it up with joint compound and some kind of patch. Not all holes in your walls are that obvious. A good place to look is under your kitchen sink cabinet or your bathroom vanity if it is on an exterior wall where the pipes go out into that wall, or let's say electrical for a garbage disposal or something like that. You can use, even though I'm not a huge fan of it, some spray foam to fill around if the hole is bigger than the pipe or the wire, whatever's going through there. Just be careful using it. Don't go crazy. Don't make a mess. Or if there's a really big hole, you can tuck in some fiberglass. Another spot is around your dryer vent. If the hole where the dryer vent goes out is bigger and it's lacking insulation, you can fill that in. And another spot is old vents. I had an old vent where the kitchen used to be in my house. On the outside, at the very least, you could tuck some insulation inside of it, or best case scenario, like I did, take that vent out, insulate it, and side over it, and be done with it. So that would cover anything that's coming from the inside going outside, as long as you can see it. There's a lot of things that might be going outside that you can't see, like a water spigot or electrical wire, and there might be a hole on the outside that you can't get to from the inside. So you can seal it up the same way. Just take a walk around your house. If there's any obvious holes going in that you can't see from the inside, seal those up too. Let's move on to one of the most obvious weak points in your house, windows. Something that might not be a surprise to you when talking about windows is take your air conditioners out and your fans, your window fans for the winter. That might seem obvious, but I see people with window fans and air conditioners in all year round. And I get it. Sometimes it's a pain to take the air conditioner out every year, but it's totally worth it. If you don't have a window AC unit and you have one that's built into the wall, because I've seen those before, you can get some kind of insulation that would block that up. I'll try and find one and leave a link in the description over that. But you could also build your own box, which is kind of like the attic insulation box that I made. We'll talk about that later in the video. With window fans, you might not notice that you're losing a ton of heat, but if you have it on all year round to circulate the air, there's better ways to do it than leaving that in, because you are just sucking money out of your house. So step one, take those out, please. There's a couple different types of windows. In my case, I have vinyl replacement windows. They have the low E glass with the argon gas in between 2 layers of glass. If you have older wooden windows, single pane glass, those obviously aren't going to be as efficient as these. You could have wooden windows that are more efficient, that have the 2 layers with the argon gas in the middle. It all depends on what kind of window you have. If you have storm windows on the outside of your house, that's a good place to start. Make sure those are closed, especially if you had an air conditioner in, you took it out and you forgot to close it. That will do a lot to stop drafts from coming in that window. If you have older wooden windows and you are considering replacing them, putting a replacement window in like this, I will say it is one of the easiest things you could do to add some energy savings to your house. You just take that window out, pop this one in. I know that I'm making it sound a lot easier than it actually is, but it is actually very easy, and I have a video on how to do it. I'll leave a link in the description over to that. But if that isn't an option for you, I totally understand that. You don't want to spend a whole bunch of money. Try and seal up the window that you have. One of the fail points of the window is if it's installed improperly or if it's just really old and it doesn't close that well. On the bottom sash here, you can see there's this piece of weather stripping, and if that has worn out, you can add your own to it. You can get a replacement piece, or you can just get some adhesive backing foam like this. This is a really thick one that I actually had. You can see some remnants of it on that. When I had my air conditioner in there, I put some of this on there, or even something as thin as this, just to get it to seal up. If that window is racked at all because it's old or it was installed improperly, a little tiny gap will let a ton of cold air in. You could do that same thing at the top if you have a double hung window like this. That's the thing. You could have a single hung, you could have a sliding window that goes side to side, but the same principles apply. Just seal up any air gaps, and obviously, if you have a broken window, if there's a hole in it, replace the glass. It's worth mentioning that you might not even know that your window isn't working as efficiently as it could be. You might notice some condensation in the window. That might mean that your seal has broken. In between those 2 panes of glass is argon gas, and once that escapes, the efficiency of the window goes way down. So if you're seeing that happen, some condensation on the inside, and you notice it's not working as efficiently as it used to, you'll want to get a replacement sash. For a lot of these replacement windows, it's really easy to do. Just contact the company, order one, and it's really easy to switch those out. Way better than getting a new window, trust me. And I have a video on it. Here's something that I didn't think would work until I actually used it. These window insulation shrink kits. I had a sunroom at one point that had all storm windows. That's all that was there. No windows like this, literally just a thin piece of glass, and it got so cold in there in the winter. So as I was looking for options, I came across this one. I tried it, and that room warmed up so much after using it. And they're really easy to install. All you do is use some self-adhesive tape, go around the trim of the window, you put this plastic on, cut it to size, and then you heat it up with a hair dryer. The plastic will shrink up, it'll be crystal clear, you'll still be able to see outside of the window. Although if you have windows like this, you might have to make the decision whether you want your shades up or down, or come up with a different solution, put shades on the outside. It depends on what kind of window you have, but this really does help to seal it up and keep your heat from going out and stop the drafts from coming in. One other thing to keep in mind before you use that window shrink kit is if you take a nice close look here, you can see there's some condensation in here. You're gonna wanna wipe all that down and make sure that this is completely dry before you do the kit, because you don't want to trap moisture in there. And the reason that that's happening is because the warm air is hitting the window where it's cold, building up that condensation, and it's not going to happen if you do the shrink kit, or if it does happen, it'll happen on that and not on the inside, hopefully. But you can reduce the risk by making sure it's dry before you seal it up. Next up, exterior doors. Depending on where you live, it's very common to have a storm door. And this is going to help you out tremendously. So if you don't have one, you can consider getting one. If you do have one and you have interchangeable screens and storm windows, a lot of these come with ones that you can take out and put in throughout the changing of the seasons. Make sure you do that. In my case, it's really easy. Done. My storm door is one of those situations where there's room for improvement. If you look up here in the corner, you can see daylight. So I could go along here and use some caulking and fill all that gap in until you can't see daylight. I might as well seal this whole thing. And if this seal has gone on the outside, I'm sure you can get replacements for this, or if nothing else, you can use some of that foam, the self-adhesive foam, depending on how bad this is, you could replace that. And if you look at the very bottom, there is a big gap right here. And as long as you have an adjustable door sweep on the bottom here, this is a really easy fix. You just loosen up these screws, push this down until you don't see daylight anymore, kind of like that, and tighten the screws up. Now, same thing at the bottom here, you can see daylight. So I could run a bead of caulking here as far out as I could, and if I still see daylight, and it's because of this door sweep, I could consider getting a new one if I wanted. Now, your exterior door itself, the biggest fail point is the weather stripping. This piece right here on this particular door. These can get worn out over time and prevent a good seal against your door. And on newer doors, it's very easy to replace. Typically, it comes out just like this. It has this little piece right here that sits in this channel. You just pull this out, comes in a roll like this, and you just replace it. Tuck it right back in like this. Make sure all the corners are tight. And if this is not the style that you have, say you have an older door, wherever the door meets this jamb, that's where you want to add some foam. If there's already weather stripping there, peel it off, try and get the adhesive off, and add something like this. There's specifically made weather stripping, exterior door weather stripping that you could use for that. And it's generally pretty easy to install. Just that weather stripping combined with making sure the door shuts correctly, make sure it shuts nice and tight, is going to do a lot to seal this up. If it is loose, you might have to move your latches around to pull the door in tighter so that it crushes that seal a little bit and seals it up tight. There's a couple things at the bottom of your door that you could do to stop drafts from coming in and stop your heat from going out. And the first thing is your bottom door sweep. The one on this door actually failed and I could see daylight coming through. The good thing is there are a ton of options when it comes to replacement door sweeps, and generally it's really easy. I did make a dedicated video for that. I'll leave a link in the description below to where you can see it if you need to do it. But like I said, it is really easy. And after you put a new door sweep on there, if that's what you need, don't forget, if you are able to adjust your threshold. On newer doors, you can see screws like this, and you can tighten or loosen those, and your threshold will be adjusted up and down to get a nice tight seal against your bottom door sweep. One more thing on the bottom here that you can tell is actually missing. Right here is a door corner seal. These have an adhesive back. You just peel this, and then you pull your weather stripping away a little bit like this, obviously cleaning all this old adhesive up and all this dirt and grime. And then you can run a bead of silicone all along the bottom here, and that will stop water and air from coming in the house. And you can do the same thing on the other side. And in general, for doors and windows, I know a lot of you want to do upgrades to your house, and an easy thing to do is to upgrade the trim. So if you upgrade the trim on a door or window, just tuck some insulation in there or use spray foam responsibly and seal that up if you can. On some older windows, there's not much of an opportunity because you have window weights on some really old windows, but wherever you can, if you're gonna upgrade the trim, upgrade the insulation. Next up, outlets and switches on exterior walls. I'm gonna take the cover off of this, and here is your typical outlet with an electrical box behind it that is meant to only house wiring, not insulation. If you take a look at a typical box, all of this area is going to, again, be for wiring, not insulation. So you're losing all of this potential insulation area. When I remodeled this room, I put in these energy saving boxes. They have foam right here, so when you do the drywall, it seals tight against here, and in the back, these places where the wires go through have foam surrounding them. I think these help a little bit, but there's still some improvement that can be made with this. And one thing you can do if you have a regular box like this where you don't have the seal, the first thing you can do, because this right here along the side of the box is never going to be completely tight. There's always going to be a gap there. So you could go around with some caulking and fill all of this in. Just to be clear, do not put anything in here. That's reserved for wiring only. I'm just talking about going around here and sealing up between the drywall and the box all the way around. Now, after you seal all of that up, before you put the plate back on, I would suggest letting that dry so you can take this off, put it back on with no issues. It doesn't stick to this. And another thing you can do, which is what I'm gonna do, even though I have this seal right here, there's room for improvement. I'm gonna use these little socket sealers. This is just a thin piece of foam, but I think it will help. You have different cutouts here. This is for like a square switch and a regular switch. And these are super simple. You just take that cover off and then put them into place like this. And that's gonna cover up a lot of that. Put this back on and that will seal this right up. And these are pretty inexpensive and I think a pretty easy way to add some energy savings to your house. A huge part of this is not only to stop the cold drafts from coming into your house, but it's to stop the warm air from escaping. And one thing that warm air loves to do is to rise. So I'm gonna go over a couple of things that you can do with your ceiling. And the first is to just insulate. If you're able to, do it yourself. You have access to your attic. There's no floorboards, or you can take the floorboards up. Take the old insulation out if it's really thin and gross, maybe from mice, like it was in my house. Or if your insulation's good, you just need more, you can add more insulation. But be careful, if there's a vapor barrier there already, you don't want to add another vapor barrier because that will trap moisture, depending on what kind of insulation you choose to do. If you can't or don't want to do the insulation yourself, a good option for you might be a local program that does energy audits. For instance, in Massachusetts, there's something called Mass Save, and it's through the state. They come in, they do an energy audit, not just on stuff like that, but just to make your home more efficient, and there's a ton of benefits with that. I've never done it, so I'm not gonna go into a bunch of details about it, but I know people that have done it, and it's little to no cost from what I hear. But check with what you have for local programs if you have any. That's a good option. After you've replaced or added as much insulation as possible, or if that's not an option, you can look for your weak points. And the biggest one in my house was this attic ladder right here. This is a large area that did not have this. This is a attic ladder insulation box that I built myself. You can buy these or you can watch my video and see how to make one yourself. Either way, anything you can do to block that up will help save money and not have your heat go right out of your roof. Another place that your heat loves to escape is through light fixtures like this. If it's an older house or if you have like one of those dome lights, you have a smoke detector, a fan, if you really wanted to, you can take it down and kind of seal up around the box like we did with the outlets. But if you have canless lights like this, or you have recessed cans, then there is room for improvement. So with the older recessed cans, you actually have this big dome going up into the ceiling, and it's not really that easy to just take that out and replace it. But the older style canless lights like this are pretty simple, and this is what you do. You basically just grab the light and pull down just like that. So that, for its time, is a great improvement. In fact, these are still used widely today, but this can be improved on. You can see there is a lot of insulation in here, and you can insulate right up to this, but let me show you what I'm doing now. These are the lights that I'm using now, and I am going to upgrade from these because they are super thin. They're actually called ultra thin lights from Halo. So you can see the difference, how much insulation you can get above this one compared to this one. So if you are able to change out your light fixtures and you like the look of these, I would definitely suggest these over something like this, or especially an old recessed can. One other place that warm air loves to escape out of your house, in fact, it's designed this way, is right out of your chimney. I don't have a fireplace in my house. I have a chimney that vents my heating system, but if you have an actual fireplace, when you're not using it, make sure you close your flue to stop that warm air from escaping. Make sure you shut any doors that you have to stop it that way. And in fact, today I learned that there's something called a chimney balloon. Never heard of it until I was doing research for this video. You can stick it up in your chimney and it will kind of inflate. It looks like a pillow and it will block off the chimney completely. Obviously, remember to take that out before you light a fire, because that would probably be bad. Same thing with opening your flue. Now we are in my basement, and in general, it's comfortable down here. I'm not too concerned with insulating my entire floor in my basement, but the most critical point of a basement is where the house sits on the foundation. Right here is a sill, and when the sill in new construction builds, when they put it against the foundation, they use something like this. Strips of sill seal that go along the entire foundation material in between that and the sill. And that will seal up any air gap that's there. And now I believe there is a code that requires you to insulate in every one of these bays and along the side here. And generally speaking, you want to just stop any air gaps. So you could do something like I did here. You can see this sill, I caulked in all these gaps in between the two sills, and anywhere there was any kind of gap, and then I painted this whole thing for that reason. Not just for aesthetics, but it seals it up. And I might consider doing insulation here. Again, another spot I could improve, but the real big spot for me is this bulkhead area. So I just built this recently, and I did spray foam in here, but you can see there's a lot of gaps in this framing, and against here, you can see I could fill this with insulation, and I can feel right now that there's cold coming through here. So I could tuck this in with insulation, and I could even cover this up maybe with plywood or with drywall. But it all depends on your situation. You might not even have a basement. So in that case, don't even worry about it. One thing I can say is that there's 2 rooms in my house that get just about 5 degrees colder than the rest. And you would look in here and you could probably tell why, because that is a crawl space and they are below the bedrooms that get very cold. And that is because they aren't insulated. So I could insulate these floors. I have some pipes in there that I would probably insulate at the same time, just in case, but this is definitely a spot where I could improve. It all depends on how much you want to spend and how comfortable you want to be. If you hate walking on a cold floor and you don't want to spend a whole bunch of money and it doesn't bother you that much, put down an area rug and call it a day. It's totally up to you. So we've covered a lot of potential places that drafts could be coming into your house, and you could try this little experiment if you suspect a place or if you don't know where the drafts are coming from. Close all of your doors and your windows and run an exhaust fan, like your bathroom vent or a microwave vent that vents outside. And in theory, that will be pulling air out of your house. So wherever there's a draft, it should accentuate those drafts. So I have my bathroom fan running right now, and I'm gonna take a lighter like this, and I'm gonna use my basement as an example for this, because we have a great example. So if you don't have any drafts, the flame will look something like that. But as I bring it down like this, you can see that that is almost putting out that flame. So you can see a little flickering if you have a small draft, or it could be like that, and it feels cold. So it is a draft that I would want to block up. That might just be a natural thing if you have the door closed in a bedroom and it's almost putting the thing out, but that is cold. I can feel that. So I could use something like a door draft seal like this. This is just a peel and stick. You peel this back, and then you would attach it right here, stick it to the door, and then afterwards you can do a test, and it looks like that is stopping that draft. So, might be a fun little experiment for you to do. Another way to do it is with a match, and the match might even work better. If you do find a draft and you blow it out, you can see the smoke afterwards pulling into the house. So the lighter and the match trick will definitely work, and this, you did not need to do this, but it could be pretty fun. You can get a thermal imaging camera, and that's going to tell you a lot about where you're lacking insulation in your house. Not sponsored by any company that makes thermal imaging cameras, by the way. I just happen to have one. I used it for another video, and there are definitely spots that I could improve on. This will, like I said, tell you a lot. So that's if you're gonna do a major overhaul or if you just wanna have some fun. As I said in the beginning of this video, everybody's house is gonna be different. Everybody's situation is gonna be different. And there's only so much money that you're gonna want to put into something that might not repay you for 20 or 30 years. But in this video, I think I've given some pretty inexpensive ways along with some major ways that you can improve the efficiency of your house. So if you didn't know where to start, I hope this video helps you out. If you want to see another one like it, at the end of this one, there'll be some popping up here after the outtakes. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one. Coda the whole time. It's just. I love you, but shut up! It's under your stationary blah blah. Oh, that's the clip. That's the clip, Lauren. Any kind of sorry.